This video shows the engineer's view of the complete ride up Pikes Peak, with comments, engineer comments, and engineer's controls inserted. The outside window views will be on the return down video. Thanks for watching this presentation, and don't forget to like this video. Please leave your comments and subscribe to the channel for previous videos and more videos coming to our RailFan playlist. Please consider sharing with your friends.
You have a highball.
Alright, here we go. I didn't tell you to people came over to see if there's a guy opening up. It's a loud whistle, isn't it?
It is.
That's what happens when you put highly compressed air through it.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome aboard the Broadmoor, Manitou, and Pikes Peak Railway. We are about to embark on a journey of 8.9 miles to the summit of Pikes Peak with an ending elevation of 14,115 feet. That's an elevation gain of about 7,600 feet, or about a mile and a half from our current elevation here in Manitou Springs. First things first, I would like to introduce today's crew. Way up at the front of the train, in that tiny glass box there, you'll find our engineer, Josh. Everyone say good morning, Josh. It's Josh's job to drive this train safely up and down this mountain like he has so many times before, and most importantly, make sure we don't get lost. My name is JC, and I will be your conductor this morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is my job to take you all up and down this mountain safely, and I'll be providing a narrative of all the fun and interesting things that have happened during our 132 years of history. So sit back, relax, let Josh and I do all the hard work as we bring you to the top of America's mountain by rail. Now I'm going to go through the train real quick for a head count. I'll be right back with you.
Alright, full speed ahead.
morning once again, everyone, and welcome aboard the Broadmoor, Manitou, and Pikes Peak Railway. This railroad has been in operation for over 132 years, and during that 132 years, we've only closed down once, and that was between the years of 2017 and 2021, where we spent $100 million to replace every square inch of our 8.9 miles of track. We also bought 3 brand new trains, one of which you are riding on right now. We also refurbished 4 of our older trains, and we updated our depot, bringing our railway into the 21st century. We truly spared no expense on this railway, and we hope to ride for decades to come.
Questions, feel free to ask.
Some of that stuff's doing for you there.
So we got our display right here that tells me all the information about our traction motors, our diesel engines, our fuel, our depth, all that stuff. We got our speedometer, and we got our air pressure gauges for our brakes. And this also tells me similarly what our traction motors are doing. We got all our controls for our doors and lights and such. We got our brake right here. This is my throttle control over here. Another brake over here in this, and then I got my horn and engine and keys and all that stuff. And then this kind of tells me a bunch of information about the doors, the engines, the motors, the converters, the pneumatics, the temperature inside the train, if we have a fire, and any sort of errors, anything going on with the train that it's not happy about, it lets me know, which is nice. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple. It practically drives itself. I don't need to, I just need to tell it, hey, go forward, and then it does all the work.
Now, as you may have noticed this morning, we have a single track going up and down this mountain, but we will have trains traveling up and down it at the same time. As a matter of fact, a little bit later today, we'll be heading straight for another train. But don't you worry, we pass each other at what is called a siding, and we control these sidings with what is called a switch. Now, back in the olden days of 2017, it was your conductor's job to jump out of these trains and control these switches manually. But now in the 21st century, we have fully automated radio-controlled switches that can be operated with just a push of a button by your engineer Josh, making things so much easier for us. I'll let you know a little bit later how you can help us hit these sidings on time. Here's a little hint. We leave the summit when we say we do.
So yeah, when we're coming up to a switch of any sort, I just pull out my radio here. I switch it over to the switch control channel, and then I have a little set of kind of like phone numbers almost that I use to that I basically call the switch, and I tell it which way I want it to go. And that's pretty much how we switch the tracks nowadays, unless they break. But if that happens, we have other ways of switching them if need be.
Cool. So it's kind of like doing the radio thing's kind of interesting. It's kind of like small airports. You can turn on the runway lights and stuff.
Yeah,
with the mic, you just click the mics.
It's kind of similar. Yeah, you can also control them from anywhere on the mountain. So theoretically, you can control a switch all the way at the summit from down at the depot. Obviously, you don't want to do that because we don't know if anyone's around them. They're super silent. They're super powerful, and they're super quick. So if someone happens to be walking over a switch, which you shouldn't be, that's how you lose a foot. So, especially at the summit, we have to be extra vigilant of people walking around there, because if someone's walking around there and they're not, when they're not supposed to, that's how people get hurt. So.
And that probably never happens.
No, I mean as far as walking.
Really ever happened, but it's definitely a big concern.
People
especially
don't
at the
pay
summit.
attention.
Yeah. Well, at the summit, you're not even supposed to walk on the tracks unless you're
Now I'm going to be
employee,
pointing
so-
out some interesting landmarks on our trip today. So if I could have everyone please look to your left. Now please look to your right. Now your other right. Well, that's not going to work out today. We have people facing all kinds of directions on this train. So to make things a little bit easier for us today, I will point out objects on the outside of the train, either on the 2-seat side of the train or the 3-seat side of the train, so nobody misses out on anything today. Here's our first opportunity to practice that. Coming up on the 2-seat side of the train, at right about eye level, you're going to look for a boulder that fell down the mountain and landed in the shape of a diamond,
You
just
guys
like
want
that
to
on
look
a
behind
playing
me a
card.
little bit.
We're very creative with our names here on the Cog Railway, so we've named this one Diamond Rock.
It's like in the
Diamond
shape of
Rock
a
is now
diamond.
passing the center of the train.
See it?
Yeah, but if you ever miss anything on the way up, you always have a second opportunity on the way down. I like to tell people that because that one's easy to miss.
Diamond rock, like all the other rock you'll see around us today, is made up of a very special mixture of mica, feldspar, and quartz. This mixture is so unique to the area that its very name is Pikes Peak granite. Now, Pikes Peak granite is very fragile and prone to erosion, such as wind and water erosion, but we also have another kind of erosion up here called ice wedging. Ice wedging occurs when water seeps into the cracks of the rocks, freezes and expands, and it breaks these rocks apart into all these interesting shapes you will see around us today. Now, as we get higher and higher, the rocks will get smaller and smaller. That's because the ice wedging process happens more often at higher elevation.
There used to be an artist that lived in this area named Paul Eidelman who used to walk up and down the tracks and paint various pictures of the scenery. So he has a little plaque there memorializing him because he spent a lot of time back in the day doing stuff like that. So we call that area Artist Glen.
We are now coming up on our first waterfall of the day. You can find this one on the 2-seat side of the train as well, right at about track level. This waterfall was named after two sisters who lived in this area, Rose and Emma, so we've named this one Rose Emma Falls. Rose Emma Falls is now passing the center of the train. Now I see those of you on the 3-seat side of the train looking a little jealous. All the cool things have been on the 2-seat side of the train so far, but don't you worry, I've got a waterfall for you, and it's so much better than the last one. As a matter of fact, it is higher than Niagara Falls. But get those cameras ready, but don't look up, look straight across at Minnehaha Falls. Minnehaha Falls is now passing the center of the train. Now I'm seeing some disappointed looks this morning, maybe even a glare or two. I bet you thought I said it was bigger than Niagara Falls. Nope, I said it was higher. We are currently at an elevation of 8,300 feet, which is 8,000 feet higher than Niagara Falls.
the first of our sightings where we can potentially pass a train. Obviously, we're not going to be passing any trains on the way up because we're like the second train of the day.
Bummer. Bummer.
Now is a great opportunity on our journey to introduce yourselves to the people sitting around you this morning. Maybe get their names, where they're visiting from, their favorite color, their Wi-Fi password.
Dispatch, this is train 14 going for Minnehaha.
That's what you call it. Okay. I don't have to tell you that.
These are cousins and sister from Savannah. Here, so this is my fourth. What part of Texas?
I hope you took this opportunity to make a new friend or two this morning. The reason we do this exercise is because we are about to climb one of our 25% grade hills, and it won't take much to bump you out of that shiny new seat of yours into the laps of the person sitting across from you, and it's much less awkward if you know their names already. A 25% grade means for every 100 feet of forward motion, we will be climbing 25 feet in elevation. To put that into perspective, once this train gets all the way up on this hill here, the nose of the train will actually be 4 stories above the bottom of the train. This hill we're climbing right now is called Son of a Gun Hill. It got its name back in the days of our steam engines, where it was the fireman's job to shovel enough coal into the steam engine to maintain enough pressure to get to the top of these steep hills. As it was said, when they got to the top of this hill, the firemen would turn to their engineer, exhausted, and say, "Man, that hill was a son of a gun," or something like that. Now, I often get asked if we get rocks falling onto our tracks, and we do from time to time. It's Josh's job to look out for those rocks, and when he sees one, he'll stop the train, and then I usually hop out and I can roll them off the tracks. But just last week, there was a rock so big, I had to ask for Josh's help. So we both got out of the train, and we pushed and shoved this rock over on the 2-seat side of the train. While Josh held it there, I quickly found 3 smaller rocks to prop up underneath it. Let's hope it's still there, folks, because I really don't want to move this one again. Check out our handiwork on the 2-seat side. This one is called Prop Rock.
You did a good job.
Yeah, you got some pretty rock hard abs to be able to lift that one.
You must work out, Josh.
Yeah.
Prop Rock is now passing the center of the train. Don't worry, we lift it with our legs. But in all seriousness, a large boulder does find its way onto our tracks from time to time. And when that does happen, we do have friends with dynamite experience that can help us clear the tracks for us. Now, as we are driving through Pike National Forest here, you might notice some piles of trees and even some trees marked with blue or pink ribbons. We are working with the Colorado Springs utilities to cut down some of the dead trees in this area. A healthy forest usually burns down every 70 to 80 years, but this forest has not seen wildfire for about 150 years, and so it is a little bit overgrown. So Colorado Springs Utilities is helping us maintain the infrastructure in the area just in case there is a wildfire. Also, we are working with the U.S. Forest Service to monitor the pine beetle kill in this area. So those trees with the ribbons, we're monitoring the pine beetle activity in this area and making sure to keep it under control, because pine beetles are known for decimating forests such as this here. It might interest you to know that there was actually a hotel in operation here for over 30 years. It started off as a modest one-room log cabin, and hikers kept stopping by and asking for snacks. So the owner opened up a lunch stand and went into business. When the railway opened up, business really took off, and he expanded to 22 guest rooms, a large banquet hall, a post office, a railway station, of course, and of all things, a one-lane bowling alley. The name of this grand establishment was the Halfway House Hotel, and you could actually stay there for $10 a week. Unfortunately, the hotel did burn down due to mysterious circumstances, and all that remains of it are some photographs of it in its heyday and a sign marking its location coming up on the 3-seat side of the train. It is not a tall sign, folks. You're going to want to look down to about the bottom of your windows for this one.
People often think that because it's called the halfway house hotel, it means we're halfway up the mountain. That may be true if you're going like in a straight line. It's in terms of
The location of the halfway house hotel is not passing the center of the train. We are now coming up on our third waterfall of the day. You can find this one on the 3-seat side of the train as well. You might notice some water coming out of a pipe, so we've cleverly called this one Pipe Falls. Pipe Falls is connected to the oldest and longest operating hydroelectric plant on this side of the Mississippi River. This hydroelectric plant was built by the city of Colorado Springs in the early 1900s, and it still powers about 200 homes in the local Manitou Springs area. Along with that hydroelectric plant on the 3-seat side of the train, we will be passing by a white frame house with red trim. This is the old caretaker's home, and up until recently, the caretakers used to live here year-round in order to take care of that hydroelectric plant. But just recently, the caretakers actually built a new house by the city of Colorado Springs so they could be closer to town. Coming into view on the 3-seat side of the train is the reason why those caretakers moved away. This dirt road here we lovingly call the caretaker's 60-mile-long driveway. Yes, I said 60, as in 60. This 60-mile dirt road wraps around all 9 reservoirs on the mountain, and it ends somewhere between Cripple Creek and Divide. Now, since the caretaker's children are old enough to go to school, the city of Colorado Springs built them a house a little bit closer to town, so they have to drive 17 miles instead of 60 miles to get to school. For those fishermen on board wondering if you can use this road to access our pristine reservoirs, I'm sorry, this is a private road not open to the public, but you do have access to 3 of Pikes Peak's reservoirs via the Pikes Peak Highway. We are now traveling through Pike National Forest. Pike National Forest is about 1.4 million acres in size. To put that into perspective, you can actually fit the entire state of Delaware within its boundaries and still have some room around the edges. Pike National Forest is home to an abundance of wildlife, keyword here being wild, so no guarantee on animal sightings today. But animals you should keep your eyes peeled for include mountain lions, bobcats, black bear, mule deer. We have a family of moose in this area. We have porcupine, wild turkeys, coyotes, foxes, rabbits, and squirrels. As we get a little bit higher, the landscape changes and so do the animals. So keep your eyes peeled for Arctic ravens, golden eagles, our world famous whistling yellow belly marmots, and everybody's favorite Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. If you live in Colorado, you might have heard of the Colorado Wildlife Viewing Act that was passed into law just a few weeks ago. Now what that means is it affects tourist attractions that go through national parks and national forests such as our own. So what that means for us is if we do see any animals today, we're all going to get taxed 25 cents when we get back down to the depot. But there is an exception to this rule. If we see one of those big deer, especially the ones with the big antlers, that would be $1. You could say we make a lot of dough from that one. I'm sorry, folks. You don't have to fawn over my jokes today.
Train well, west side.
Clearing in a mountain setting is called a park. Coming up on the two-seat side of the train, you will find what we call Deer Park. Named after the mule deer, we will often find grazing here early in the mornings and late in the evenings. Now, if you look all the way to the back of Deer Park, you're going to see these tall pine trees with cinnamon color bark. Those are ponderosa pine trees, and they don't get that cinnamon color until they're about 80 years old. For those tree huggers on board, I'm told if you go up to a ponderosa pine tree and give it a big hug, you'll be rewarded with a scent of vanilla or butterscotch. Don't worry, three-seat side, I've got some trees for you as well. Coming into view right now, you'll see these tall, thin trees with white bark and black spots and round green leaves. These are aspen trees, and they are native to Colorado, and they grow best above 8,000 feet. Now, a very special thing about these aspen trees is they grow in something called a grove. Oh, we've got some deer in Deer Park. That'll be on the three-seat side, or two-seat side.
Somebody said. Was there one?
What?
Somebody said they saw a bear?
I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen it here. Maybe.
So a very special thing about these aspen trees is they grow in something called a grove. So whether you see 10 of them, 100 of them, or 100,000 of them, they are often sharing the same root system, making them one of the largest living organisms on Earth. As a matter of fact, the largest living aspen grove is one located between Utah and Colorado. The aspen tree also has very many medicinal values and was used by both the indigenous people of this area and the animals. If you're hiking out in the woods and you're out of sunscreen, the aspen tree has you covered, quite literally. You could walk up to an aspen tree, rub its bark, and a white powder will come off, and that can be applied to the skin for an SPF of 2. Also, if you peel back the bark of an aspen tree, there will be a green bark inside, and that green bark can be chewed or turned into tea and has many anti-inflammatory properties. So if you told me you had a headache, I might tell you to take 2 aspen and see me in the morning. Coming up on the three-seat side of the train, you'll see one of our older models of our trains just hanging out here for a while. And followed by that, we will be seeing our brand new snowblower. This yellow snowblower can help us clear up to 12 to 15 feet of snow in the winter time.
The snowblower is what allows us to run all year round, because otherwise the tracks would get too covered in snow. And it can shoot snow up to 20 feet in any direction.
Do I have anyone on board my train from the wonderful state of Wisconsin? Yes. A few of us. Welcome aboard, my friends. It might interest you to know that the founder of this railway was actually from Kenosha, Wisconsin. His name was Zalman Simmons, and he was an inventor and entrepreneur. He took a 3-day rail trip to the summit of Pikes Peak to inspect some telegraph lines that he had invented. When he came back down, he said the views from the summit were spectacular, but the 3-day rail trip was quite possibly the most uncivilized thing he had ever done. So he went back to Kenosha, gathered some investors, and collected $1.5 million in capital, a tremendous amount of money back in the day. He broke ground on the Cog Railway, and the first passengers went up on June 30th of 1891. Any guesses as to how much a ticket cost back in 1891? 5 cents? 25 cents? $1? How about $5?
Oh my.
That's equivalent to about $160 today, so you got yourselves a deal today. That ticket price did not change for around 50 years. Later on, Zalman Simmons sold the railway to local businessman Spencer Penrose, the original owner of the Broadmoor Hotel, a 5-star, 5-diamond resort right here in Colorado Springs. Since then, the Broadmoor Hotel and the Cog Railway have enjoyed common ownership. Now, if you don't think you've heard the name Zalman Simmons before, I bet you have if you've ever slept on a Simmons Beauty Rest mattress. That's the same Simmons.
So coming up here, you'll get a pretty good view on the two-seat side of the summit. You might be able to see a little bit of a building kind of silhouetted there. That is the Summit House, and that is exactly where we are going.
We are coming up on our Mountain View siding. It is called that because this is one of the last places where we'll be able to see the summit of Pikes Peak before we are actually on the summit. If you're sitting on the two-seat side of the train, if you look all the way up to the tippy top of that highest rock there, you'll see a trapezoidal looking building up there, and that is the Summit House Visitor Center.
Dispatch, this is train 14 rolling through Mountain View with a passenger count of 232.
Train 14, route to Mountain View with a count 232.
In 1806, there was an Army lieutenant by the name of Zebulon Montgomery Pike. He and his men were on a journey of discovery similar to the ones of Lewis and Clark. They were exploring the southern boundary of the newly acquired Louisiana Purchase when they saw this mountain off in the distance. They headed straight for it, assuming the summit to be over 18,000 feet high. Well, they were in their summer uniforms, rations were running low, and they were waist deep in November snow. Zebulon Pike never summited the mountain that bears his name, but he did not name the mountain for himself. He modestly called it the Grand Peak in his journals, and it was only the explorers that came after him that named the mountain after him. Now, of course, Pikes Peak has had many names before Zebulon Pike came around. 100 years before that, it was known as James Peak, after the mountaineer Edwin James. 200 years before that, the Spanish conquistadors exploring this area called this mountain El Capitan, which means the leader. 600 years before that, the native Ute tribe of this area called this mountain Tava, which means Sun Mountain. It just keeps going and going, folks. The earliest known inhabitants of the Americas today are only known as Clovis culture, and they have a history dating back to over 11,000 years ago. Now that's long before written language, so we may never know what their names, myths, and legends were for this magical place.
Coming up here on the two-seat side, you might see this little like silver sign with a red number on it. Those are our mile markers. Those tell us how far we are along the track. This is mile marker 5, and our track is 8.9 miles long. And we're missing mile markers 3 and 4 because when the construction crew came through here and rebuilt our tracks, they accidentally destroyed those signs. So we need to rebuild them at some point and put them back up.
If you peer through the trees over on the 3-seat side of the train, you're going to see some large gray boulders. We call this the lion's den because our park rangers tell us that on rare occasions they will see mountain lions sunning themselves out there. And on even rare occasions, the mountain lions tell us they see the park rangers sunning themselves out there. Personally, I've seen neither, but now is a great opportunity to get out those binoculars if you happen to bring any with you today.
Drive out or fly out?
Everyone has been great about following my second rule of not standing or walking up and down the center aisle. We are going to be seeing some pretty spectacular views here, so you are welcome to stand up in your seating area and take some pictures. And once you're done taking those photographs, I do ask that you take your seats once again. In 1893, a school teacher from Massachusetts took a carriage ride up the mountain on a trail that parallels our track in many places. She was awestruck by the view she saw that day, so when she got back home to her hotel room in Colorado Springs, she decided to write a poem about it. Later on, that poem was set to a popular piece of music of the day called Materna. That piece of music ended up being America the Beautiful, written by Catherine Lee Bates, a close runner-up to be the national anthem of the United States. I would like to welcome everyone to Inspiration Point, because it's views like these coming up on the 3-seat side of the train we believe inspired her to write those patriotic words. I'd like to welcome everyone to America the Beautiful.
Yeah, this is one of the main reasons why this job never gets old. Is with like views like this.
Oh yeah.
Would you all like to sing America the Beautiful with me? Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty above the fruited plains. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Nicely done, everyone. Thank you. Ask yourself today, what exactly is a cog railway? We are a standard gauge railway that is 4 feet 8.5 inches between the running rails, but that's about as many similarities as we share with your other standard railways. What really makes it special is that third set of rails you might have seen going down the center of the tracks. That is called the rack rail, and the rack rail has teeth cut into it, and these teeth mesh with the 10 cog wheels underneath these trains. It's these cog wheels that provide us all of our motoring and all of our braking power. The rails you see on the outside, those are called running rails or T-rails, and all they do is balance the train and guide us. A standard adhesion railway can only climb grades of about 4%, whereas we can climb grades of up to 26% on this railway. We are not the steepest cog railway in the world. You can find that one in Switzerland, where they climb grades of 48%, and their trains are built like staircases so they don't fall off the mountain. We are only one of the few of a dozen cog railways in the world and only one of 3 in operation here in the United States. You can find the very first cog railway that was ever built. That goes to the top of Mount Washington in New Hampshire, and they still use their steam engines there. You can find another cog railway in the United States located in the Quincy Mines in Michigan. But we are arguably one of the most famous, being the highest cog railway in the world and the highest railway of any kind in North America. And we are also one of the longest cog railways in the world. And our ending elevation, of course, is 14,115 feet. Now here's a very interesting physics factoid for you all today. We are being powered up by this hill by the 4 motorized cogwheels down in our locomotive. And at any time these teeth are connected to the rock rail have about 1 to 2 square inches of surface area that they're connected with. So we are being pushed up this mountain, all 115 tons of us, on a surface area that's not much larger than the palm of my hand.
I don't know if it was power or heat. Lost something there. These things get hot.
Ready for Wednesday? I say we.
If you're looking out of the 3-seat side of the train, you might have noticed a large body of water. This is Lake Moraine, and it's the only naturally forming body of water on the side of Pikes Peak. All the other lakes and reservoirs you will see today are man-made. Lake Moraine was placed here during the last ice age by a glacier. Now, if Lake Moraine does look a little man-made to you, that's because the city of Colorado Springs actually expanded its banks a few years ago. And that road you see going around it, that's actually part of the caretaker's 60-mile-long driveway. This next one you can look out of either side of the train for. If you're on the 3-seat side of the train, you'll be looking down about 100 feet. If you're on the 2-seat side of the train, you'll be looking up about 50 feet. What we're looking for right now are these scraggly looking pine trees with wavy arms and gray bark. These are called bristlecone pine trees, and they are some of the oldest living organisms on our mountain here. As a matter of fact, the bristlecone pine tree that we'll be passing down from the 3-seat side of the train has been dated at 2,200 years old. And those bristlecone pine trees we see above us from the 2-seat side of the train, those have been dated at about 200 or 300 years old. This next one is easier to see for everyone. If you look straight ahead off the 3-seat side of the train, you're going to see a mountain with a U-shaped tree line. This is called Mount El Magre. It also has a few local names. We also call it the Calendar Mountain because its elevation is 12,365 feet. It's also called Mount Baldy because of its unusual shaped tree line.
figured.
To pay for your $1,400 train ride.
No.
Eventually.
I know, it's been a lot.
You said you like trains. You ever watch YouTube stuff?
What's your channel
I just got done chasing. Well, Billy got one on the car. I'd be damned if I didn't.
What's it called? We'll look you up.
RailFan enthusiast.
Okay, can I take a picture of your business card on your bag?
There you go.
We are about to travel through a portion of our tracks we call Windy Point, named after the high winds we can often see up here. It is pretty common to see winds of up to 100 miles an hour up here. That's equivalent to an EF1 tornado. As a matter of fact, about a year and a half ago, we broke that wind speed record. We clocked winds of 188 miles an hour up here before they broke our equipment. That's equivalent to a Category 5 hurricane. Now, of course, the winds are behaving today, so we get to make our way to the top, but winds are one of the things that can actually stop these trains from making it to the summit. We will not summit the mountain if the winds are in excess of 60 miles an hour, because it becomes too dangerous for people and our equipment up here.
At that point, the train starts to rock. And when, their 90 or 115-ton train starts to rock back and forth, and you're like, I don't know about that one.
At least I hope that's where it's at.
Coming up on the two-seat side of the train, you're going to see an old stone building. This is the old section crew house, and the section crew used to live up here all summer long, and they just walked to wherever work needed to be done on the tracks. Now our section crew, actually, as a matter of fact, is right up ahead. They are wearing the backpacks up there. They are not hikers, they are section crew. They work here on the tracks year-round, except for Thanksgiving and Christmas, keeping these tracks nice and safe. There's actually a baby born in that section crew house, and he actually grew up to work on the Cog Railway for over 50 years. His name was Johnny Taggart, and he was actually the last person to drive a steam engine all the way to the summit of Pikes Peak before they were only allowed to make partial trips. Now, Johnny Taggart did pass away a few years ago at the ripe old age of 103.
Folks, Rick. Dispatch train 14 stop coming in at Windy Point to pick up second crew.
Train 14 stops at the main at Windy Point to pick up.
Ah, looks like we do have some elk on the very edge of the ridge there. Now I do need everyone to take their seats once again so that Josh can get this train going safely. Our section crew is working on this switch here, so.
Okay, Josh, we're good. Thank
Can we all take our seats once again, please?
Copy that, thank you.
And anywhere.
Josh, everyone is seated. You have 5 all.
Good, thank you.
You said anywhere on Ghost Corner?
Just walking down.
Dispatch train 14 up for Windy Point.
Up to Windy Point, dispatch.
Yeah, I'm going up trail. Oh, there was a little marmot sitting on one of these logs. I mean, these logs that are really close to us.
like we're getting a better view of those elk down there on the 3-seat side, still on the ridge there, right at tree line.
The video won't have it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's fine.
Now I do have some very important summit related announcements, so I do need everyone's attention at this time. Please take out your favorite timekeeping device, whether that be your watch, your cell phone, or your sundial. My watch currently says it is 9:32 and a conductor's watch is never wrong. So please make sure your watch says 9:32 or something similar, especially if you're visiting us from a different time zone. This train will be leaving the summit at 10:40. 10:40. 10 minutes before that, at 10:30, we will be boarding once again, and your engineer Josh will sound the horn 3 long times. 5 minutes after that, at 10:35, he will sound the horn 1 long time, and that is your cue to run back to the train. We are just like any other train, plane, or boat, and we do not wait for those who are late. What do you call somebody who shows up at my platform at 10:41?
Out of luck.
Late is a good guess. We like to call them hikers. So if you're not planning on hiking down Pikes Peak today, I highly recommend that you get back onto this train before 10:40. I do recommend, if you have trouble keeping track of time, you're welcome to put an alarm on your cell phone. That usually helps people out. Our time up at the summit is limited. I do recommend you use those restrooms first. We also have a limited staff at the summit house, and the lines do tend to get long. So if you're planning on getting anything from the cafe or from the gift shop, please use your time wisely. Also, since we are on the top of a mountain, please use your resources wisely, including our paper and water resources. If you see something that looks like a muskrat or a beaver, those are our yellow-bellied marmots. We're coming up on a portion of our track we call the saddle because it's the only part of our track where you can see for hundreds of miles just by turning your head. On the 3-seat side of the train, that farthest mountain range there, that is called the Continental Divide, also known as the backbone of the Americas. It stretches from Alaska through Canada, the United States, Mexico, Central America, South America, and it ends in Patagonia, Argentina. Coming up on the 2-seat side of the train, we're going to get the same view as we did at Inspiration Point, and we're going to be able to see the entire city of Colorado Springs, the Black Forest, and on a clear day like today, you can see all the way out to the border of Kansas.
I can give it to you when I get back there.
Yeah, that's fine. I think I don't have my credit card.
Oh.
Cash, I'll check.
I can't believe I did that. I'm parked right by there.
Do I have anyone on board visiting us from the Lone Star State? Make some noise for me. All right. Now, if you've traveled through Texas, you might have heard that everything is bigger and better in Texas. Do you still believe that? Well, if you do, I invite you all to look out on the 2-seat side of the train. I don't know what you all call this where you're from, but here in Colorado, we like to call this gravel. All of our gravel is naturally this small right here in the Rocky Mountains. corn sheep on the 2-seat side of the train. About 100 feet from the train. They're standing pretty still.
Oh, right there.
Now this is where our journey takes a bit of a dark turn. Now railroading is a dangerous business, and we've had our fair share of casualties, but we only have one grave on the mountain, and that grave belongs to one of the original members of the section crew when the railroad was being built, but it does not belong to a human being. It actually belongs to a burro, which is like a donkey, and it was this burro's job to bring supplies up and down the mountain. And this burro happened to be bringing up a box of dynamite, and that box of dynamite went off just a little bit too early, and he flew in 17 different directions. Now, of course, this was the section crew's favorite burro, so they stopped the work for today. They gathered all 17 bits of him, and they buried him coming up on the 2-seat side of the train at about track level. And of course, they had whiskey shots and eulogies afterwards.
It's right after this pile of rocks.
He does have a little wooden cross on it, and it looks like a pile of dirt surrounded by rocks. Should be passing the front of the train now. And his grave is now passing the center of the train. Now, as we get a little bit higher, if you're on the 2-seat side of the train, you might notice another wooden cross. That is not a grave, but it is a memorial for a couple that was actually hiking up here. Now, in the early days of the railway, it was common for people to hike up along the railroad tracks. And this particular couple was hiking up just like anybody else. And the last train of the day happened to come down, and they said, "Hey, you might want to get on this train here. There's a blizzard incoming." And that couple looked at the engineer and thought he was joking. They said, "A blizzard in August? I think we'll be just fine." So they parted ways, and that very next day, the first train of the day made it to 8.5 of the 8.9 miles of track, and they found that couple frozen to death. Now, as they were looking through their belongings to find out who they were, they did find a postcard in the gentleman's pocket that said, "Congratulations, enjoy your honeymoon in Colorado. Just don't freeze to death." Now, if this story is of particular interest to you, we do have postcards of that frozen dead couple that you can find down in our gift shop down at the depot.
Yeah, I had it snow on me up here one time on 4th of July.
Now, I know not all my stories are glitter and gold, but this next one actually is. If you look out on the 3-seat side of the train, you might notice a mountain that looks a little bit out of place. It doesn't have any vegetation growing on it. It looks like it's got its head chopped off, and it has stair steps cut into it. This is actually the Victor and Cripple Creek gold mine, one of the most lucrative gold mines in the world. Since its opening in 1890, it has pulled out billions of dollars worth of gold, silver, and other precious materials. I'm told that to this day, it still pulls out about $1 million worth of gold every single day. If you're interested in the Cripple Creek and Victor gold mine area, you can actually reserve a gold mine tour at the Molly Kathleen mine. You can go down in the mine there. You can also visit our friends at the Victor and Cripple Creek Narrow Gauge Railway, and they're going to take you around to all the different mine openings in the area.
Yeah, we've taken in Rocky Mountains National Park.
We're not doing that one.
You'll see a lot of elk up there.
Oh, really?
Oh, I mean, they're like right next to the roads.
Lots of elk.
was two of them running around there.
A lot to get around. There he is. Peeking.
That's what your head was in that picture.
Folks, we're going to be stopping here for just a moment. We actually picked up those section crew members earlier at Windy Point, and they've asked to be dropped off here to work on the tracks.
Those animals or those dogs? I think those are animals.
Coming into view now on the three-seat side of the train, you're going to see a winding road. This is actually the Pikes Peak Highway, home of the second oldest auto race in the United States, the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. Every year, about the end of June, we close down the highway and we send cars flying up this road at speeds exceeding 100 miles an hour. The record was actually broken in 2018 by a French driver by the name of Romain Dumas. He was driving an experimental electric sports car called the Volkswagen IDR. He made it to the summit in 7 minutes and 57 seconds. If you were to drive the Pikes Peak Highway at the posted speed limit, it would take you about an hour and a half to drive up here. I do ask that everyone takes their seats once again so that Josh can safely get this train going once again. I do ask that everyone take their seats once again so that Josh can get this train going once again. Josh, everyone is seated again. You have highball when you're ready. So if you were to drive the highway at the posted speed limits, it would take you about an hour and a half to navigate the over 150 hairpin turns. Then coming up on the three-seat side, once we get going here, you'll see an example of one of those hairpin turns, and you'll also notice that there are no guardrails. It is quite common for cars to fly off on this particular turn here. As a matter of fact, last year during this time of year, we had a Lamborghini fly off this corner. And it actually was going so fast, it cleared the tracks and landed on the other side. And we did have a few cars fly off the tracks during the race this year at this particular corner as well. We do have some more bighorn sheep about 100 yards from the train on the three-seat side. There's a small herd of them, about 5 or 6 there. Their gray fur does blend in with the rocks very well, but you can tell them from their white butts. And some of them are facing us, so just look for some white spots out there. Almost to the summit, folks, so this is just your reminder that our time up here is limited. I do recommend that you use this restroom first, and please be aware that the summit house staff is limited today, so make sure you use that time wisely, especially if you want to get any snacks or any souvenirs. Now it's pop quiz time. What time is this train leaving the summit? 10:40. And what time will we start boarding again? 10:30. That's correct. Josh will sound the horn 3 long times for that boarding call, and then 5 minutes after that he will sound it 1 long time. So keep your ears open for those train horns. Please be careful on your adventures today, and please stay on the assigned marked trails. If you're looking for the Summit House placard that has the elevation on it, the old version is actually on the 2nd floor of the Summit House, hanging up there. There is a new version that's on the west side of the parking lot, and it looks like a big black obelisk. Please be careful as you step outside of the train, as there is a small gap between the train and the platform, especially if you're a tiny human with tiny feet. Please watch your step. Now is a good time to take note of where you're seating today. You will be in the same train, in the same seats. So look at those silver tabs of the windows. I believe we are going to be on the east side of the platform, and this train has the number 29 marked on the outside of it. So if there is another train up here, look for train number 29, and we are going to be on the east side of the platform. I do ask that everyone please take those 2 black tabs on the windows and roll those windows all the way up. That helps us keep the temperature nice in here, and also helps us keep the bugs out. And once you're done rolling up those windows, I do ask that you take your seats again, and please remain seated until the train has come to a complete and final stop. You'll know the train has come to a complete stop because I will give you the all clear, and it sounds a little bit like this, all clear. So please wait for that all clear before you stand up.
If I can leave my water here.
Alright, now to get your bearings straight, we are nowhere near the bearing straight. But over on the 2-seat side of the train, you'll see the city of Colorado Springs all the way out to the border of Kansas, that is due east. The nose of the train will be pointing due north towards the small town of Woodland Park. Alright everyone, give yourselves a round of applause. You made it to the summit of Pikes Peak, 14,115 feet.
Just keep climbing down. Josh, can I leave my water bottle on our seat?
Yeah, you're welcome to. We're not watching anything, so just don't leave anything valuable on the train.
Okay.
Once again, please remain seated so my engineer Josh will bring this train to a nice, safe stop. Once you be getting out of the train, you'll be taking a right, and then to get to the Summit House, you'll be going around this train here and take a left to get to the Summit House.
Good job, Josh.
Thanks for
Didn't run us up the edge.
train.
All clear. Welcome to the summit, everyone.
Chugging along.